WWE PLEs in 2024 have been a mixed bag. We've had some good or even some amazing moments, but we've also had a lot of garbage. Obviously, in my opinion, I think we've had more garbage than good. However, today I'm going to recap and rank every single WWE PLE from 2024 from worst to best. I got a tier list lined up. So without further ado, let's take a sip of the libations and let's get into this. So, what do you want to talk about? Alright, so you guys see the tier list here, okay? We got the peak tier, which is the absolute best of the best, some of the best PLE content I've ever seen, and also easily the best content of this year. We have the good to great category, which is basically, self-explanatory. Your good or your great PLEs that aren't quite masterpiece level. Average / decent, self-explanatory. Mid, this is all your mid / below mid, subpar content, right? And then garbage is garbage. The worst of the worst. I'm gonna tell you right now, there's gonna be a good bit of stuff landing in that garbage tier. So without further ado, let's lock in and get into this list. Royal Rumble this year. I'm going to go ahead and lock Royal Rumble in mid. Now, the reason why I'm going to put it in mid is because, quite frankly, outside of the fatal four-way between Orton, Roman Reigns, AJ Styles, and LA Knight, which, again, I'm going to do my best to kind of remember all the matches and things that went down at all these PLEs, but that match took place. I thought that match was actually pretty solid, but it could have been better. More drama, more suspense that didn't make it so predictable that Roman would retain, right? Maybe someone goes for a pin in the ring on someone who's not Roman, and Roman can't get in time to break the pin, but the person kicks out. Little things like that to add the suspense and drama and storytelling in this match, I thought would have gone, it would have done wonders. Logan versus KO for the US belt. Decent match, solid ending, whatever. Women's Royal Rumble I thought was average or above average, and then the Men's Royal Rumble was absolute and utter trash. So this is going to go in the mid category. A lot of forgettable stuff. That Men's Royal Rumble was absolutely atrocious. I almost am going to put this in garbage, but I'll calm down and relax myself. Elimination Chamber, though, is going in garbage. This is the most boring, bland, and forgettable shows that I have seen in a very long time. Now, the problem with this is that it takes place in Australia, so I had to wake up at like 5 a.m. or sometime. What time did I wake up for this? It was something ridiculous and egregious. I was up at like 5 a.m. watching this PLE just for it to suck as well. No star power. A bland card. The Women's Elimination Chamber match I thought had the wrong winner. I think it should have been Bianca or Liv Morgan to go challenge Rhea Ripley and have a match at WrestleMania, but they gave it to Becky as per usual. Tiffany Stratton shined in that match. The Men's Elimination Chamber I thought was actually a good match with decent elements like Logan Paul, beating up Randy Orton, LA Knight getting cost a match by AJ Styles, who flew all the way across the world, and stuff like that I thought was cool. Drew was good. Bobby Lashley had a couple cool spears through chambers. That was nice, right? But outside of that match, nothing on this show was good. The Nia Jax versus Rhea Ripley match was okay. It was a decent main event. It was a decent match, but everything else was bland. The Grayson Waller effect with Rollins and Cody was trash. You also have the tag match, I think, between the Damian Priest and Finn Balor and the New Catch Republic. Forgettable matchup, right? It was decent, but it was mainly forgettable. And everything else in the show, nobody cares about. There's a reason half the arena was tarped off and no one showed up to this trash. Then we have night one of WrestleMania. Now we're getting into the good and great content. This night one of WrestleMania was absolutely awesome, okay? Now the reason why it's not in the peak or the masterpiece category is because of a couple things. Now the first thing we have to discuss is simply this. The opening match on the card, Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch, I thought the match was fine, solid, pretty solid match, but it could have been better. I understand that apparently Becky Lynch, I think she had a flu, or Rhea Ripley was having panic attacks, or maybe both were happening, so the match couldn't be as amazing, right? But they could have had more suspense and drama on Rhea actually, retaining, or maybe even losing the championship to Becky Lynch, and I think the match ended about 5 minutes too short. They were just about to kick it into that crazy high gear that usually happens in the final 5 to 10 minutes of a PLE matchup, right? However, they just didn't do that, and I think that kind of was unfortunate. The Andrade and Rey Mysterio match versus, Dominic and Santos was forgettable garbage. Bianca, Jade, and Naomi versus Damage Control was forgettable garbage. What else happened here? Sammy versus Gunther is overrated, but a good match, of course. And then, obviously, the main event. The men's tag ladder match, too, for the tag belts was amazing. It had the perfect winners, good booking, great spots, and a lot of crazy moments with ladders and tables. And then the main event, Rollins and Rhodes versus Rock and Roman. absolutely sensational. Started off slightly slow, but this main event, when it kicked into high gear, and it was absolutely masterful. The storytelling, the in-ring charisma, the trash talk, the actual moments, right? The storytelling, like I said. And on top of that, the in-ring work rate was great. Seeing The Rock take a Cody cutter, get rock bottom through a table, Roman Reigns is spearing Rollins through a barricade. I mean, this is a blast from the past, was also a blend from the future. Very, very good match. I really enjoyed this. And even though we knew the Bloodline was going to win, they kind of ebbed and flowed with the suspense of the match, so I thought that was nice. Great night 1. Night 2 of WrestleMania is going in the peak tier. I was in person actually at Mania 40 in Philly night 2 for this WrestleMania. This was sensational. That crowd, that energy, just injected into my veins, man. That thing was palpable, bro. Phenomenal night. Seth Rollins and McIntyre starting off the show. That match was an absolute classic, dog. Very, very good match. I very much enjoyed that. I personally think that, honestly, I mean, that match has a case, because I'm going to be doing a ranking later this week on ranking every single PLE match this year for WWE in 2024. But man, that match was great. Great start to the show. You know, a bunch of finishers. It was a finisher fest. Drew McIntyre with the Twitter antics during the match. Bored at work, lol. Then he loses, and then he wins the belt. Gets in a fight with Punk. Damian Priest comes out and has one of the better cash-ins I've ever seen in my life. And it was a very entertaining moment, very entertaining match, and a great way to start off the show. After that match, I knew the rest of the show was probably going to be great. LA Knight versus Styles, kind of forgettable, not gonna lie. The Street Profits versus the Street Profits and Lashley versus the Final Testament, forgetting, but seeing in person Montez Ford's athleticism was crazy. And then obviously, everything with Bayley and Io Sky. I couldn't get super invested in that match because, there was stuff with, I was still thinking about what would happen in the main event with Cody and Roman, so I wasn't invested in it. But the 10 to 15 minutes I actually keyed in on and paid attention to in the match were pretty good. I remember those moments, right? And then you had the stuff with, what was the triple threat with KO, Logan, and Randy. Great match, I thought. And then the main event with Cody and Roman, the energy, the excitement, the hype, the passion, the goosebumps. Mama Rhodes. And the in-ring work Cody and Roman were doing before The Rock and Cena and Taker even got involved was just great. Fisherman suplexes, power bombs through tables, stealing each other's finishers, in-ring trash talk, which I saw on TV later after I got home, probably like a month later. I watched the match actually back on TV. Great match, great cameos, the intrigue with Undertaker, Rock, Cena showing up. Probably the craziest 10 minutes in the history of pro wrestling, and WrestleMania 40 Night 2 might be the best night in the history of pro wrestling. So, yeah, that's going in peak. Backlash is going in the good tier as well. This was a very good PLE. The France crowd is probably the best PLE or WWE wrestling crowd of all time. This was absolutely sensational. They elevated the PLE because if this would have taken place in like Kansas or like Cleveland or something, nobody would have cared about Backlash. But France, man, they made this something special, and I really appreciated that, man. I was having a good time watching this show. Naomi versus Tiffany versus Bayley, I think, was a match. That was a fun watch. It had a bad ending, though, with the roll-up, but it was okay. Cody versus AJ Styles was a good main event. I mean, the crowd elevated it, of course, but the actual in-ring work they were doing, it was like an old-fashioned, technical, classical wrestling match, and I just kind of like that, right? And then on top of that, I also think the stuff with Jey Uso and Damian Priest was fine. The ending was but, the actual in-ring work, and then obviously Jey Uso's iconic entrance I thought was very good. And I think the underrated gem of this show, and one of the underrated gems of the year, is KO and Orton versus Tama Tonga and Solo Sikoa in that tag match, bro. The fact that it just turned into an all-out brawl and like a no-holds-barred, no DQ match, amazing stuff. Backlash was good. Crowd was absolutely generational. King and the Queen of the Ring is actually going to go in the good and great tier as well. I thought this was good, and listen to this. Dr. Libation's Cody Rhodes, I think this is his best title defense of his entire reign so far, was versus Logan Paul at King of the Ring. I thought the match was entertaining. I thought both of the wrestlers, showed charisma in the match. Cody calling him Logan Paul a B-word. Logan Paul talking trash. Logan Paul doing a splash through the table. Cody Rhodes hitting a Cody cutter on the announce table. The ending of the match. I thought the athleticism, too, from Logan Paul was great. This was a very, very entertaining match, and it was fun. And even though you knew it was predictable and Cody was going to win, they at least made it very entertaining, and that's the bare minimum you can ask. Sammy versus Chad Gable, too, I think took place here. Sammy versus Chad and Bronson Reed. Very good moment. This PLE took place on my birthday, so I remember this very well. And Liv Morgan, I thought, had her best match of the year versus Becky Lynch, and the match was booked very well with a good ending with Dominic Mysterio getting involved. So yeah, this was a very fun PLE. I enjoyed it. And Gunther versus Randy Orton in their King of the Ring match, I thought was absolutely awesome. Great physicality. The crowd for it was awesome. The crowd was good all night. And even the matchup with, what's it called? I think it was, who else was involved, man? Lyra Valkyria and Nia Jax was trash, but the ending with that big annihilator was crazy. So, yeah, I like King of the Ring. Clash at the Castle is going in mid. This is a very mid PLE because, listen to this, right? Outside of moments in the Chad Gable versus Sami Zayn match and the Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest match, which I thought was a great match, probably the highlight of the show, of course, right? But other than that, the Cody versus AJ Styles match was atrocious. This match was a terrible I Quit match, bro. AJ Styles loses because he's scared of some steel steps? Really? You know what I'm saying? A guy who's going to go down as a legend bows out like a coward and a punk. And then there wasn't really anything memorable in terms of the spots here. It was just 40 minutes of boring time. Piper Niven versus Bayley was disaster. I mean, yeah, you get the point. This was a disaster class of a show. But McIntyre versus Damian Priest was cool. And I think that the moment where Punk costs Drew the belt in his own hometown, it was a pretty good moment. Not going to lie to you. I actually like that. So, good ending, but everything else in the show is absolutely atrocious and forgettable. I'm not going to talk about any of the NXT stuff unless I've seen it, and I haven't seen most of this stuff from NXT PLE, so that's that. Money in the Bank, you know this is going in garbage. This is one of the worst booked WWE PLEs of all time. This was a booking disaster, and it really was an American nightmare of booking. It was boring. It was bland. The in-ring work in some of these matches was good. Don't get me wrong. I thought the in-ring work in the women's and men's Money in the Bank matches was awesome. But on top of that, everything else was atrocious. And the results of what happened in the men's Money in the Bank was just stupid. Why is Drew McIntyre winning the Money in the Bank? Why are you wasting the Money in the Bank later in the night in a Seth Rollins versus Damian Priest match that nobody really asked for? And then when we got it, it had some decent moments, but Rollins actually pinned Damian Priest for a 3 count. The ref doesn't count, and it's a botched moment in the match. I'm sick of these botches, man. This PLE was full of botches, and it was full of botches in booking, right? Drew McIntyre winning made no sense. Him getting cost of championship to a dude him and Punk already had a great feud going. You didn't need to waste the Money in the Bank. You could have given that to Jey Uso, and the Money in the Bank would have been extremely popping, and everyone would have been curious what was happening with it till this day, especially with Raw on Netflix. Imagine Jey Uso cashing in the Money in the Bank on Raw on Netflix to take Gunther's World Championship or something like that, bro. Are you kidding me? That would have been an eruption of the crowd. You get what I'm saying? So, there's different avenues and stuff like that. The main event was utterly forgettable with Cody, KO, and Orton versus the New Bloodline. It was an absolute disaster. That was boring. It was bland. And Cody, the same person who took like 8 finishers and kicked out at Mania 40, loses and gets pinned off of 1 spike. And this is a problem with Solo Sikoa's booking that we're going to talk about more in this video. But they make him win certain matches in order to make him seem strong. But we know he's not going to beat Cody and Orton in these feuds. So you're doing this for no reason, and it's just predictable garbage. This was a disaster of a show. I think I've rambled on enough. This is just boring, bland, poorly booked. Decent in-ring work in some aspects, but the women's Money in the Bank match, even though it had a couple botches, was easily the best match of the night. And then obviously Cena showing up and doing his big surprise I thought was pretty cool as well. Then after this, we have SummerSlam, okay? SummerSlam is going in the good and great category. Now, here's the thing about SummerSlam. The booking is absolutely pitch perfect in 90% of the show. The booking is just amazing. Every match I feel like had the correct winner, and every single ending I feel like was actually good to nearly all of these matches as far as I'm concerned. The only problems with this PLE are really the main event with Cody and Solo. It was just a boring and bland match, only really done to reintroduce Roman Reigns as the OTC back into the fray with Solo and the New Bloodline and set up that feud that was probably going to culminate on Raw and Netflix or probably at Mania 41 with Rock and Roman, things of that nature, him and Solo, whatever, fighting on Raw and Netflix. So that's that. But outside of that, there was also the problem with Braun Breaker and Sami Zayn. I thought that match was very mid and underwhelming. The Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan match was also extremely mediocre, like very mediocre. It actually kind of bothers me thinking about it now, actually, because it just really didn't work for me. It really did not work for me at all. And quite frankly, outside of Dominic Mysterio's double heel turn, technically, that match was atrocious. Then you have Damian Priest versus Gunther. I thought that was a great match with a good finish. I think LA Knight versus Logan Paul was a very good match. But yeah, outside of that, man, it has a couple flaws, but the booking for the most part is great. Roman Reigns' return was absolutely epic, iconic, and it got a massive pop out of me, so that was nice. But yeah, so SummerSlam, good show. Good booking, good matches. That's all you really want in a show. Bash in Berlin, this is going to go in the garbage tier. Now, the reason this is going to go in the garbage tier is because the show was garbage. Now, let's move on. No, I'm just kidding with you, right? Bash in Berlin is atrocious. Everyone already knows this, really. There isn't really much of an argument here for this show to be anything above garbage, quite frankly. I mean, Randy Orton versus Gunther was a disaster. You watch their match at King of the Ring and then watch this match. Just watch those back-to-back. That's all I'm asking you to do. And you will realize how much of a disaster this finale was for this feud, or whatever this was you want to call it, with Orton and Gunther. Gunther and Orton, right? 10 minutes of the match is spent by Randy Orton trying to set up an announce table with steel stairs so he can, side suplex Gunther through it. It was boring. It was bland. Very predictable. And why is Randy Orton losing off of a sleeper hold, man? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make any sense, dude. The crowd was good in this show, don't get me wrong, but, like, we have to start being honest with ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just, it just wasn't a good show. Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest versus Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan. This advanced absolutely nothing. It was bland. There were multiple botches from Liv Morgan, who I thought wrestled a very bad match here. And on top of that, you have the other stuff. Cody and KO was just very predictable and just stupid. If you have a chance to go for the WWE Championship and all you have to do is hit your friend's leg, you're gonna hit his leg. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make any sense. They made the WWE Championship look like a freaking toy. You know what I'm saying? It's like it doesn't matter. If I was in there fighting for the WWE Championship, I'm kicking Cody's knee and I'm pinning him. I don't care that he was injured. Not my problem. That's your problem, bro. I'm taking that belt. And the fact that KO didn't do that is very embarrassing. And I just thought that was really stupid. Then you also had some meaningless match with Jade Cargill and Bianca versus, I think, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn for the belts. Nobody cares about this. So yeah, very forgettable PLE. Thought the matches too were just booked poorly and the in-ring work rate was just not good in most of this content. So, it is what it is. I didn't make the PLE. Hunter did it. Don't blame me. Blame the boss. You dig? Now we have No Mercy. I did see this NXT No Mercy PLE. This is going to go in good. To put it simply, I'm not going to harp on or ramble about this, but the matches from top to bottom were pretty much great. Axiom and Nathan Frazier. Fraxium is really... Nathan Frazier, man... Like, this guy is phenomenal. He just is in the ring. His promo work and his character work may not be there yet, but he's got time to grow on that. Forget that right now. The in-ring work of this guy in Axiom, it's generational. It really is. It's like Javon Evans is just generational. You know what I'm saying? Sol Ruka is just generational. All these generational in-ring talents. Oba Femi's match with Tony D'Angelo was good. Ethan Page versus Joe Hendry was really fun. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this show. It was a good old-fashioned, just good in-ring wrestling matches. That's all this show was, and that's all it needed to be. Bad Blood. Bad Blood is going to go in mid. Now, the reason why Bad Blood is going in mid is simply because of this, right? Bad Blood has a great start of the show with Punk and Drew in the Hell in a Cell match. Good storytelling in that match, good moments. Good moments where Punk and Drew are going through tables, all this other stuff. It was very, 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 very entertaining match, if I do say so myself. I think the match is overrated. I don't think it's a masterpiece, right? Because Punk barely really does that much in the match. He has a couple cool moments, but it's really about the storytelling, the hype, and the build, and some great spots throughout the match, right? And some gnarly stuff with Drew getting the Crimson Mask and then nearly breaking his back on the steps, it looked like, right? But outside of that, what was it? Damian Priest versus Finn Balor? Disaster. A glorified Raw match. That match could have taken place on Raw and nothing would have changed. It was boring. Bayley versus Nia Jax sucked. Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan sucked. Raquel Rodriguez came out and got no pop. You know what I'm saying? It was very boring. It was disasterful. I had no reason to really care that Dominic Mysterio was in a cage because nobody cares. Nobody cares. This isn't elevating anything. And fast forward 3 months, nothing has changed, and Rhea and Liv are still fighting for the same championship. This feud lost its speed really around the time of Bash in Berlin SummerSlam era. That's when this Rhea Liv feud died out, and this show was basically the epitome of that happening. So it is what it is. Then we have the ending as well. I thought was good with Cody and Roman versus Fatu and Solo. Very fun match, entertaining. Jimmy Uso's return, massive pop. Rock showing up at the end, massive pop. Cody doing the splash onto Jacob Fatu through the table and saluting Roman. Seeing them work together. The match had star power, it had intrigue, and it had good moments and a solid finish. So that's basically Bad Blood is boiled down to a good start and a good finish. Everything else in between, awful. That's the end of the discussion. Then we also have Crown Jewel. Crown Jewel was garbage. Crown Jewel was just an absolute mess, man. Again, the stuff with Solo Sikoa, like I keep saying, they have him pin Roman after hitting a couple spikes to make him seem strong so he's believable heel. But we know he's not going to win this feud with Roman in the OG bloodline. We knew he wasn't going to win that feud with Cody. So having him get these wins is just meaningless, and it makes Roman and Cody look weak at certain points. It's stupid. You know what I'm saying? And I just didn't like the in-ring work of the match too. It was very forgettable and very bland and boring. It just wasn't a good match, and unfortunately, but it is what it is. And then also on top of that, Liv Morgan versus Nia Jax was a disaster class. That match was boring. bland, mid-in-ring work. And again, the Crown Jewel Championships mean absolutely nothing. I said that before the PLE, and I'll say it again. The Crown Jewel PLE, the Crown Jewel Championships mean nothing. I don't care whoever ever wins these, because again, these are the two world champions from the respective divisions of men and women, and yet the matches are absolutely mid or bad. How is that even a thing? Why is it possible? Nobody knows, but that's just a situation that we have to deal with, so it is what it is. Gunther versus Cody Rhodes was a disaster class main event as far as I'm concerned. Very boring. Gunther did the same thing. Chop, clothesline, chop, clothesline, chop, clothesline, and then he kept on hitting Cody's ribs or back or his shoulder, one of the parts that was injured. He was working it the whole match, and it was just very boring and bland. Your two world champions are in the same match, and it's boring and bland, and no one remembers anything that really happened in it because nobody cares. Then on top of that, the only great things I'd say were on the show were LA Knight, Carmelo Hayes, and Andrade in the triple threat. Probably one of the best triple threat matches I think I've ever seen. And we also had the match with the Women's Fatal 4-Way Tag Team Championship match. I thought that was great. Chelsea Green that's when Chelsea Green, I actually started to change my opinion on her. She kind of got over in that match as far as I'm concerned, right? Her little antics were actually kind of funny. Her and Piper Niven are not that bad together, I'll be honest with you, right? And then obviously Lash Legend was the show stealer here, the MVP. And that's really all that matters about this match, about this PLE really, outside of the LA Knight match. I mean, everything else, I can't even remember what else happened here. Who else defended their title? Oh, Seth Rollins versus Bronson Reed. Very good match. Good match. So you have like 2 or 3 good matches and then 4 matches that were bad or booked poorly and nobody cared about. So there you go. You get garbage. Okay, Survivor Series. This is going to go in the garbage tier. I don't know why that went over there to the mid, but yeah, this is going to go in the garbage tier. It's unfortunate that I have to sit here and say these things, but let's be honest with ourselves, guys. The Women's War Games match was atrocious. It was absolutely atrocious. Nobody actually cared about anything that was happening. The story threads with Damage Control and Bianca and Io and Bayley and all that history, none of that gets developed or even looked into in this match at all. You also have the fact that the first 15 to 20 minutes of this match is 80% botches and boring, bland, slow-motion wrestling. It is sad that this match even exists. I really can't believe it. This is one of the worst women's matches of the year, and arguably the worst women's match of the year, besides Elektra Lopez versus Zelina Vega on SmackDown like 10 months ago. You know what I'm saying? And it's just very sad, man. This match was really bad. The storytelling wasn't there. The build-up for the match wasn't there either. The story makes no sense. There was no story, realistically. And the ending result of having the heels with both of your world champions, Miss Money in the Bank, an enforcer, allegedly, in Raquel Rodriguez, and apparently a deadly sidekick, in Candice LeRae, and nothing really mattered. Nothing really mattered, bro. I mean, I don't understand this stuff, man. I mean, even though they had all that, they lost to a team of no champions that was apparently had miscommunications and were at odds before Survivor Series, and they went in there and beat the heels who have all these champions, all these Money in the Banks, all this stuff, and they beat them anyways. So the booking was atrocious, the botches were egregious, and it's the same spots. Io Sky does the flip with the trash can, so what? You know what I'm saying? You broke your neck, so what? And then LA Knight losing to Shinsuke, I thought that was awful booking because Shinsuke has gotten the U.S. belt now for 3 or 4 weeks and hasn't done anything with it. Meanwhile, you could have just kept it on LA Knight and have it keep getting elevated, but, hey, it's beyond me, whatever. The Intercontinental Championship Triple Threat was awesome. Arguably the best match of the night. And then you also had the Gunther versus Damian Priest match that no one remembers and no one cares about because it was bad. And then you have the main event, Roman Reigns' Bloodline versus Solo Sikoa's Bloodline. This match was very good. The storytelling was good. The in-ring work was actually surprisingly great, and a lot of the match actually was very great. Jimmy Uso's hitting Whisper in the Winds, doing splashes from the top of the cage, breaking his foot, unfortunately. Same with Bronson Reed, Tsunami from the top of the cage. Punk pulls Roman off. The stuff with Punk and Roman being at odds made for good memes and a nice little story thread throughout with the Paul Heyman favor that he's going to be owed. So, I thought this match was good in the ring, and it was pretty entertaining, and it feels like it actually mattered. It feels like it needed a cage. They really went to war in this match and made it an entertaining, epic clash between both bloodlines. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was very cool. Saturday night main event. Saturday night main event is going in the garbage tier. We've already gone through that. We just went through this, like last week or the week before? This is an absolute disaster, and everybody knows this, right? First off, this is something that just everybody needs to understand. Liv Morgan now and Rhea Ripley is the stale and most dumb act in the entire company now. Nobody cares about this anymore. Outside of Cody Rhodes' championship reign and maybe Gunther's championship reign, Rhea and Liv are right up there with bad and just uninteresting garbage that's taking place right now in WWE's main storylines and stuff like that, man. The stuff with Rhea just coming out right after Liv and Io wrestled, the match was filled with commercials and was too short and had a couple botches and just wasn't one of Io Sky's better matches because Liv Morgan isn't that good of a wrestler in the ring. It just is what it is. And the fact that it was all in service for Rhea to walk out after for a cheap pop from the audience is just sad. Can anything stand on its own anymore without it having to relate back to Rhea? Like, really? I can't do this anymore, man. It was very disheartening to see that. Drew McIntyre versus Sami Zayn was an absolute banger of a match, of course. And then what else happened here, man? I mean, we had Gunther versus Damian versus Finn Balor. Nothing matters. Very forgettable. Nothing progressed from this. And the main event with Cody and KO, the only thing good about this is that KO pile-drived Cody after the match and now is running around thinking he's champion, which is going to be a fun story dynamic. But, I mean, the actual match itself was dumb. Cody Rhodes is using a chair to win. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. That's like John Cena using a kendo stick in his prime. Like, what? John Cena is obviously way better than Cody Rhodes, you get what I'm saying? But they're both supposed to be like these big faces, these big baby faces, you know, these good guys. And then all of a sudden, Cody's using a chair to win. It's very stupid. KO hits a stunner, and somehow Cody's knocked out for 10 seconds. But at Mania, this dude was taking 9 finishers and kicking out. I don't understand the booking of this match. Refs going down, all this other nonsense. Saturday night's main event was absolute disaster. I'd recommend, you either, you'd either just cancel the show and discontinue it, or you make sure that the next Saturday night main event actually has main event level worthy content on it. If not, don't ever make the show again. I don't want to ever see this garbage again. Deadline's going in the average tier. It's the only show that wasn't bad and wasn't good, but was a little bit closer to being what the standard is for NXT than a lot of the other stuff. And that's just what it is. And then Halloween Havoc, I did see that. That's going in garbage. Deadline, really, the standout for Deadline was really Sol Ruka Sol Ruka and Javon Evans at this point. I mean, what is there even to say? What hasn't been said already? The athleticism, the in-ring work rate, their ages too, how much more time they have to grow as wrestlers. It's really generational. If they don't both turn into future world champions or legendary Hall of Famers in the wrestling world, that's a failed career as far as I'm concerned, because their talent gap is just, their talents, I mean, wow. But yeah, that is PLEs that I've seen this year, all of them together. That's how I would rank them. As you can see, most of these PLEs are going to end up in the garbage or mid categories, because most of it, as I've explained, is just garbage or mid. There's a couple good matches in some of these mid PLEs. Like I said, Damian versus Drew was good. Punk and Drew was good. Roman and Cody versus the New Bloodline I thought was fun. And the Royal Rumble had some fun elements, but was mostly mediocre and forgettable. Everything in the garbage tier was an absolute and utter disaster class. And then you also have the good and great tier. Everything here is absolutely deserved. King of the Ring is a very underrated PLE, man. I'm gonna have to go back and watch a couple matches from there, because that was really fun. Backlash was really good. The France crowd, one of the best in the history of WWE and the history of wrestling. Night 1 of Mania was amazing, and then Night 2 of Mania is absolutely peak. One of the greatest nights in the history of professional wrestling ever. So, overall, that is going to wrap it up for my tier list and my ranking of every single WWE PLE of 2024. And as always, let me know your thoughts on this tier list. What do you think are the best PLEs of the year, the worst PLEs, the ones that are kind of in the middle, or the ones that absolutely suck, or the ones that are absolute masterpieces in your opinion? So feel free to, talk amongst yourself in the comments below and give feedback. What other top 10 lists or rankings do you want to see based off of this year's content from WWE? And as always, I hope you guys have a phenomenal time, a phenomenal day as well, I guess. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Have a phenomenal day. Thank you for watching. Peace out. One love.